Happy Tolkien Week. Often imitated but never replicated fantasy author J.R.R. Tolkien, also known by his full name, John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, is one of the greatest and most celebrated fantasy authors in the world, and authors in general. His books have been published and read by people across the globe, and they inspired a film series to be adapted by Peter Jackson in the form of The Lord of the Rings back in 2001, 2002, and 2003, and later a prequelized version of the original first novel in the series, The Hobbit, which was not quite as beloved of a film trilogy, but is definitely worth our attention. It's something that we're going to be watching this week. There's actually been other attempts at making Lord of the Rings over the years. The only other successful attempts that were made were the Ralph Bakshi animated films from the 70s. Ralph Bakši's animation style was, a little bit crude and simple. He used some rotoscoping and other things which were kind of strange and innovative and kind of interesting touches and flourishes. Interestingly enough, there are a lot of musical sequences in the films, which were kind of designed to be children's films per se, but the content of the films was pretty intense and for a lot of children, kind of similar to like Watership Down and other 70s animated film adaptations, which were kind of violent and kind of dark for a lot of children's fare. It was a fairly successful film adaptation in and of itself. J.R.R. Tolkien, he lived between 1892 and 1973, but the full impact and influence of his books really came through in force, even though they were popular books from when he first published The Hobbit. So when he first published The Hobbit, that was September 21st, 1937. It was nearly 2 decades later before he would publish the sequel, which is the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which began with his publishing of Fellowship of the Ring on July 29th, 1954. And over the next 15 months, he released the other 2 books, The Two Towers and Return of the King. They were very influential. They had a lot of popularity, but as much as they were popular back then, they've only really grown in popularity and become a cultural phenomenon now. We're celebrating Hobbit Day this week on September 22nd, this Wednesday. The American Tolkien Society, about 5 years after J.R.R. Tolkien's death in 1978, decided to celebrate Hobbit Day on September 22nd, which is the birthday of both Bilbo and Frodo Baggins, who are the principal Hobbit characters in both The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings series, and are basically the pivot around which all the other characters in the ensemble are importantly coming through. And Tolkien Week takes place in the same week that September the 22nd takes place, which is Hobbit Day. So technically this entire week is Tolkien Week. I just barely watched the 2019 film Tolkien, which was actually a very underrated and underseen biographical examination of author J.R.R. Tolkien's life and some of his influences that led him to write The Hobbit and later The Lord of the Rings. Because to celebrate Tolkien Week, we are going to watch each and every movie in Peter Jackson's Hobbit and Lord of the Rings series in the story's chronological order. And this is the first time I'm going to be doing that, especially with all of the extended editions in the recently released 4K edition. And we're using the Best Buy 4K edition. And I'm going to do an unboxing video to show you the Steelbook Best Buy exclusive special edition version of these 4K movies. But yeah, we're going to celebrate all things Tolkien this week by watching, first off, this biography of Tolkien's life called Tolkien. Before we go ahead and look through The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies in their chronological story order, narrative order, we're going to just take a moment to appreciate this little gem of a film, this little biopic, this little biographical film about J.R.R. Tolkien called Tolkien. And it's a worthwhile picture, and those people who are interested in learning more about his life would probably be very fascinated by it. Happy Tolkien Week, everyone.